Power is not lost suddenly, it erodes quietly, through habits you believe are harmless. You speak when silence would protect you. You explain when restraint would elevate you. You fight battles that feed ego instead of strategy. The Machiavellian mind understands that power is not about intention, it is about behavior. Smart people do not fall because they lack intelligence. They fall because they ignore rules that govern human nature. The world does not reward good motives. It rewards control, timing, and perception. When you forget that, power slips away without resistance. Human nature is not fair, loyal, or generous by default. It is observant, opportunistic, and reactive. People respect strength they cannot exploit and distance themselves from weakness they can. When you ignore this, you become predictable. When you become predictable, you become manageable. You start losing influence in conversations, negotiations, relationships, and decisions. Not because others are stronger, but because you stopped protecting your position. Machiavelli warned that power is maintained by discipline, not comfort. The moment you choose emotional relief over strategic advantage, you give others control over outcomes that should have been yours. Most people believe power comes from being right, being honest, being good, or being liked. That belief is what weakens them. Power comes from knowing when to act, when to wait, when to speak, and when to disappear. It comes from understanding that every interaction is a test of leverage. Smart people lose power when they forget this and start moving on instinct instead of strategy. They confuse morality with control. They confuse reaction with strength. They confuse activity with progress. And by the time they realize it, their influence is already gone. If you're watching this, you're not here for comfort. You're here to understand why power is lost and how it's preserved. Watch until the end, because what comes next will expose the rules most people ignore until it's too late. Comment, "I protect my power, so I know who stayed focused." Subscribe to Dark Psychology Blueprint and turn on notifications. The lessons ahead are not advice, they are safeguards. They speak when silence would protect their position. Speech feels powerful, but it often weakens position. When you speak too early or too freely, you reveal thinking, intention, emotion, and limits. You turn private strategy into public material. Others no longer need to guess what you want or how you move. You have told them. The Machiavellian mind understands that silence is not emptiness, it is concealment. It keeps your options open and your leverage intact. When you speak, you commit. When you stay silent, you remain flexible. Smart people lose power when they mistake expression for control and fail to see that words are permanent, while silence is adaptable. Human nature reacts to information instinctively. Once people know your position, they begin adjusting around it, not to help you, but to protect themselves. They measure how your goals affect their interests. They prepare resistance, interference, or imitation. Even those who appear supportive now have data they can use later. Silence denies them this advantage. It forces others to operate without certainty. They hesitate, they speculate, they miscalculate. Silence keeps you unpredictable, and unpredictability is protection. When you speak unnecessarily, you remove that shield and place yourself within reach. People who speak too much believe they are clarifying misunderstandings. In reality, they are justifying themselves to people who have no authority over their direction. Explanation lowers position because it signals the need to be understood. Power does not ask to be understood. It acts and lets results define it. Every explanation you offer invites debate, judgment, and challenge. Silence closes that door. It tells others that your decisions are not open for discussion. You are not hiding because you are weak. You are withholding because your position does not require validation. Silence also controls tempo. The one who speaks first often loses advantage, especially in conflict or negotiation. They reveal urgency, they reveal attachment, they reveal pressure. The silent individual sets the pace because others are forced to react to absence rather than statement. You gain time to observe, assess, and choose the most profitable moment to act. Smart people lose power when they fill silence out of discomfort. The strategist uses silence deliberately, knowing that what remains unsaid often protects more power than any argument ever could. They explain themselves to people who haven't earned clarity. Explanation is often mistaken for strength, but in power, it is usually a concession. When you explain your decisions to people who have no authority, loyalty, or stake in your success, you lower your position. You move from acting to justifying. You allow others to question motives that are not theirs to judge. The Machiavellian mind understands that clarity is not a right, it is a privilege. Those who have not earned access to your intentions should not receive it. Every explanation you give becomes information that can be misunderstood, distorted, or used against you later. When you explain too much, you hand control of the narrative to people who never deserved it. People ask for explanations, not because they care about understanding you, but because they want leverage. They want to know how you think, what influences you, and where your limits lie. Explanation gives them all of that in one exchange. Once they understand your reasoning, they can argue against it, manipulate it, or pressure you emotionally. Silence denies them that entry point. It forces them to deal with your actions instead of your logic. Action is harder to challenge than explanation. When you stop explaining yourself to unqualified audiences, you remove their ability to negotiate your decisions. Explanation also signals insecurity. It suggests you need approval, acceptance, or agreement. This invites disrespect. People become bolder in questioning you once they sense you feel the need to defend yourself. The more you explain, the more you normalize debate over your choices. Over time, this erodes authority. The Machiavellian approach is different. You state decisions, you enforce boundaries, and you let results speak. Those who matter will understand without explanation. Those who demand explanations often seek control, not clarity. The clarity should be reserved for allies, not observers. For partners who prove loyalty through action, transparency builds trust. But for outsiders, critics, and opportunists, opacity is protection. You do not owe insight into your strategy, motives, or future to people who have not demonstrated respect. Smart people lose power when they treat everyone as deserving of explanation. The strategist chooses who gets access and who gets silence. By controlling clarity, you control position. They fight battles that feed ego instead of outcomes. Ego demands engagement. It pushes you to respond to disrespect, to correct every false statement, to defend your image in situations that offer no return. The Machiavellian mind recognizes this impulse as dangerous. Fighting to satisfy ego creates movement without progress. You spend time, energy, and focus on conflicts that leave your position unchanged. You may feel momentarily victorious, but nothing of value has moved in your favor. Power is not measured by how often you fight. It is measured by what changes after the fight is over. When a battle produces no advantage, it was never worth entering. Most ego-driven battles are emotional reactions disguised as principles. People argue to feel superior, not to achieve results. They confront to restore pride, not to secure leverage. These conflicts are loud, draining, and repetitive. They attract attention but produce nothing lasting. Meanwhile, opportunities pass quietly. While others argue, strategists observe. While others defend their name, strategists build position. Ego fights immediately because it needs relief. Strategy waits because it seeks outcome. The moment you prioritize winning arguments over winning ground, you begin losing power. Ego also narrows vision. When pride is involved, objectivity disappears. You become focused on proving something rather than gaining something. You escalate conflicts unnecessarily, making enemies where silence would have dissolved tension. You reveal weaknesses through reaction, patterns through repetition, and limits through overexposure. Opponents learn how to provoke you because you respond consistently. The Machiavellian approach is to detach emotion from engagement. You evaluate conflict as a transaction. What does it cost, and what does it return? If the return is only emotional satisfaction, the cost is too high. Power grows through selectivity. You choose battles that alter relationships, protect resources, secure influence, or shift control. Everything else is ignored. You let insults pass because they do not affect outcome. You let critics speak because they hold no leverage. You reserve confrontation for moments where silence would weaken your position more than engagement. This discipline frustrates those who seek reaction because they cannot pull you into their frame. You no longer fight to feel strong, you fight only when fighting strengthens your position. That is the difference between ego and strategy, and it is where power is either preserved or lost. They try to be liked instead of being respected. The desire to be liked weakens position because it places control in other people's hands. When you seek approval, you begin adjusting behavior to maintain it. You soften decisions, tolerate disrespect, and avoid necessary conflict to preserve comfort. This signals something dangerous, that your standards are flexible when acceptance is at risk. The Machiavellian mind understands that respect is stable while liking is volatile. People like you when it benefits them, when you are useful, agreeable, or non-threatening. But respect is earned through consistency, firmness, and boundaries. When you prioritize being liked, you give others permission to test how much they can take before resistance appears. Trying to be liked leads to compromise without return. You explain too much, agree too often, and forgive prematurely. You allow people to cross lines because confrontation feels uncomfortable. Over time, this erodes authority. People stop taking your words seriously because they sense you will retreat to maintain harmony. They may still smile, praise, or include you, but beneath that surface, your influence shrinks. You are present, but not powerful. Machiavelli warned that affection without respect does not protect you. It exposes you. People follow those they respect. They exploit those they merely like. Respect changes behavior without conversation. When people respect you, they think before acting around you. They measure their words. They understand consequences exist even if they are not spoken. Respect does not require emotional connection. It requires consistency. You do what you say. You enforce boundaries calmly. You do not bend under pressure or guilt. This makes others adjust themselves instead of trying to adjust you. Liking creates comfort. Respect creates discipline. One feels good, the other maintains power. Smart people lose power when they chase acceptance instead of enforcing standards. They confuse kindness with submission and flexibility with weakness. The Machiavellian mindset rejects this confusion. You can be calm without being soft. You can be fair without being permissive. You do not need to be disliked, but you refuse to trade authority for affection. When respect is established first, liking may follow naturally. When liking is pursued first, respect rarely arrives. Power belongs to those who understand this order and refuse to reverse it. They react emotionally instead of strategically. Emotional reaction is the fastest way to surrender control. The moment you react from anger, pride, fear, or frustration, you reveal your internal state to the outside world. Others immediately know where you are vulnerable, what triggers you, and how easily you can be pushed. A Machiavellian mind understands that emotion is information, and giving information freely is a mistake. When you react emotionally, you let the situation dictate your behavior. You move when provoked instead of when it benefits you. Power does not belong to the person who feels the most. It belongs to the person who decides the moment of response. Most people believe reacting strongly shows confidence. In reality, it shows exposure. Anger signals loss of control. Defensiveness signals insecurity. Over-explanation signals pressure. Once these signals are visible, others adjust their tactics. They provoke more, push harder, manipulate with greater precision. Emotional reaction teaches people how to control you. Strategic response does the opposite. It withholds immediate feedback, slows the interaction, and forces the other side to reveal intent. The strategist does not deny emotion. They delay expression until it serves outcome. Control of timing is control of power. Reacting emotionally also narrows judgment. When emotion leads, perspective collapses. You focus on the offense instead of the objective. You chase relief instead of advantage. You escalate conflicts that could have ended quietly. You create enemies that never needed to exist. The Machiavellian approach is disciplined detachment. You step back mentally before stepping forward physically or verbally. You ask what the situation offers, not what it provokes. You allow emotion to pass without letting it decide action. This space between stimulus and response is where strategy lives. Strategic reaction is selective, calculated, and rare. You respond only when silence would weaken your position more than speech. You confront only when confrontation secures leverage. You remain calm, not because you are unaffected, but because calm preserves clarity. Others may call this coldness. In reality, it is precision. Smart people lose power when emotion dictates their moves because emotion is predictable. Strategy is not. When you replace reaction with decision, you stop being moved by others and start moving outcomes. That is where power stabilizes and influence grows. They reveal intentions before securing advantage. The moment you reveal intention, you invite resistance. When others know what you plan to do, they begin preparing against it, even if they appear supportive. Human nature is defensive by default. People protect their position first, not your ambition. The Machiavellian mind understands that intention is leverage only when concealed. Once exposed, it becomes a liability. Speaking too early turns strategy into announcement, and advantage into vulnerability. You allow others time to interfere, imitate, delay, or sabotage. Power is not built through transparency, it is built through timing. When intention is revealed before position is secured, control shifts away from you. Many believe sharing goals creates accountability or support. In reality, it creates friction. The more people know, the more opinions appear. Advice turns into pressure. Curiosity turns into monitoring. Support turns into quiet opposition when your success threatens their comfort. Even allies adjust their behavior once they understand your direction. Some slow you down. Some copy you. Some position themselves ahead of you. Silence denies them preparation. Silence keeps your path clear. A strategist does not ask permission for movement. They move first. Explain later. Results protect themselves. Plans do not. Revealing intention also weakens negotiation. The side that shows urgency loses leverage. When others know what you want, they control pace, terms, and resistance. They raise the price. They delay responses. They test your patience. Silence keeps options open. Ambiguity forces the other side to move carefully. You gain advantage by allowing others to underestimate or misjudge your direction. Once advantage is secured, position, resources, influence, then clarity can be offered without risk. Until then, opacity is protection. Power operates best when outcomes appear sudden but were prepared quietly. Observers call it luck. Opponents call it unfair. In reality, it is discipline. Smart people lose power when they confuse honesty with strategy. They speak because it feels right, not because it is safe. The Machiavellian approach is restraint. You act while others talk. You secure ground before revealing destination. You let results announce intention when resistance no longer matters. Control is not lost through ambition. It is lost through premature exposure. They trust words instead of watching behavior. Words are the cheapest currency in power. Anyone can promise, apologize, praise, or agree without cost. Behavior is expensive. It requires effort, sacrifice, and consistency over time. Smart people lose power when they confuse what is said with what is done. They accept reassurance instead of evidence. They believe explanations instead of patterns. The Machiavellian mind rejects this mistake immediately. If the principle is rigorous, and they reject, it understands that speech is often designed to delay consequence, regain access, or reduce suspicion. Behavior, on the other hand, reveals priority. What someone does when it costs them something exposes who they truly are. Power belongs to those who measure action, not intention. People speak to manage perception. They say what keeps doors open, what avoids punishment, what restores comfort. This is not deception by exception, it is human nature. When pressure appears, words increase. Promises multiply when accountability approaches. Apologies arrive when access is threatened. If you listen instead of observe, you become vulnerable to manipulation. The strategist listens, but never concludes based on speech alone. They watch timing, consistency, effort, and follow through. They notice whether behavior changes when no one is watching, when pressure fades, or when advantage returns. Words create stories. Behavior creates reality. Trusting words weakens boundaries. You forgive too early. You reopen doors too quickly. You grant access before discipline is proven. Over time, this trains others that speech is enough to reset consequences. They learn how to talk their way back into position without changing conduct. The Machiavellian approach is different. You do not punish emotion. You correct pattern. You do not argue about intent. You evaluate outcome. If behavior repeats, the message is clear, regardless of how convincing the words sound. You adjust access based on action, not apology. This makes you difficult to deceive and impossible to control through language. Power stabilizes when behavior becomes the standard. You trust slowly, test quietly, and verify consistently. You allow words to exist, but you do not act on them. You act on evidence. People reveal loyalty through alignment, respect through consistency, and integrity through restraint when advantage is possible. When you stop trusting words and start tracking behavior, relationships reorganize themselves. Manipulators lose access. Performers lose influence. Those who act with discipline remain. Smart people lose power when they listen too much and watch too little. The strategist does the opposite and keeps control. They forget that power must be maintained daily. Power is not something you gain once and keep forever. It decays the moment you stop protecting it. The Machiavellian mind understands that influence, respect, and authority are not permanent states. They are conditions maintained through constant discipline. When you relax standards, allow small violations, or stop enforcing boundaries, power begins to leak. People notice immediately. Human nature tests weakness instinctively. A single lapse becomes an invitation. What you tolerate once becomes what others expect. Power is not lost through rebellion. It is lost through neglect. Many smart people believe that past strength guarantees future respect. They assume reputation will protect them while they soften. This is a mistake. Respect has a short memory. It fades when behavior changes. The moment you stop correcting disrespect, stop responding strategically, or stop asserting control over your time and decisions, your position weakens. Others adjust their behavior accordingly. They push slightly, then further. They take liberties that would not have existed before. Power requires maintenance, because people respond to current behavior, not past authority. What you were means nothing if what you are has changed. Maintaining power does not require constant aggression. It requires consistency. You reinforce boundaries calmly. You remain selective with access. You continue to control information, reaction, and timing. You do not allow comfort to replace vigilance. Small decisions matter more than large gestures. How quickly you respond, what you ignore, what you tolerate, and what you shut down silently, all signal whether your authority is still active. The Machiavellian approach is to treat power like territory. If you stop guarding it, it will be taken without resistance. Those who lose power often say they were too busy or too tired to enforce standards. But power does not pause for convenience. It demands daily awareness. The strategist understands that maintenance is cheaper than recovery. Reasserting lost authority costs more than preserving it. You do not need to dominate every day. You need to remain consistent every day. When people see that your standards do not fluctuate, they stop testing them. Power stays stable not because you display it constantly, but because you never abandon it. Power is not lost through ignorance, it is lost through neglect. The rules you just learned are not theories, they are safeguards. Ignore them and influence fades quietly. Apply them and control stabilizes without effort. You now understand why intelligence alone is not enough. Power belongs to those who protect position daily, not those who assume it will remain out of respect or history. If you watch to the end, comment, "I protect my power, so I know who understands this mindset." Subscribe to Dark Psychology Blueprint, turn on notifications and stay close. The next lesson will go deeper into strategy, perception, and control that most people never learn.